Kate. Hello, how are
Hello,
you?
Ioana.
I'm excited to be back and I love our conversations and I love how there's such a flow to our conversation. So today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, the heart. And if it's okay with you, Kate, I'm just going to go ahead and start and then we'll shift over to you. So for me, my big messaging in my business is a hashtag spread alofa. And you can probably see it in my book up there, spread alofa. And alofa is love in my ancestral Samoan language. And, it's not Hollywood or fairy tale love, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's more love based on the reverence that my ancestors have for community, for nature, and for our higher selves. So I really think, the song Love Makes the World Go Round. I'm an idealist and I honestly do think unconditional love really does make the world go round. But the key for me is unconditional. So, taking care of the planet and not expecting the planet to take care of us, taking care of each other in humanity and not expecting, I scratch my back, now you scratch, you scratch mine, taking care of ourselves unconditionally and not expecting anything in return. And I think that over time, there's been more and more as we become more connected globally and socially, we become, I believe, more disconnected from our heart space and from the world heart space and from this inner connectedness with humanity. And I firmly believe that that's one of the biggest sources of dis-ease in our planet at this moment in time. And it's kind of like one step forward, two steps back in terms of our air quoting progress, if you're just listening to this and not watching it. And I just think that connecting to the heart space in a very practical way versus just talking about it or reading about it, and the way that we act with each other, with ourselves, is really vital. But it's easier said than done because there's a lot of programming, there's a lot of conditioning that we've just been born into. And so I think connecting to love is an actual practice, just like everything else. And so I'm really curious to know what you have to say about that.
So when I think about the heart, I put my hands on a lot of people's hearts with what I do with osteopathy. And I have this little theory we're all walking around with broken hearts to some degree, right?
Yeah.
And it really is an area of tension for people, I would say. And sometimes it can be very challenging to shift that tension, is what I've learned and I'm continue to learn about. So that's my hands-on thing. But what I wanted to mention, something that you were saying about unconditional love. I am so curious about unconditional love because like I have a condition on my husband. Like if he does certain actions, I'm out,
Yes.
like that's a condition.
Yeah.
And then I think of my kids and one of the things I'm working on, but I'm not doing the best job at is a parenting style of go and do this and then I'll do that, And so now my kids are using it on me. They're like, well, if you do this, then I'll do that for you. And I'm like, ooh, it works.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm pondering that because, gosh, in the moment, whatever works feels like, sometimes that's what's happening. But as I'm just, open to pondering that about love really and the people you love the most.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a condition on my husband though. That's what came up for me as I was like, I totally understand and love your message. I just practically with the people I love the most, I find it really hard. And then you think of your own parents' love relationship or, and you think, oh, maybe there's some conditions on that. Like, so do you know what I'm trying to say?
I do 100% know what you mean and what you're saying, because I first heard the notion of unconditional love, like, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, maybe more. And then I have pondered what you've said as well. I'm like, but, and I've actually heard, a speaker talk about, well, no, there actually are conditions. But as you're talking, what I am thinking, and I could be off, we're just having a very casual conversation here. I think that you can have conditions to a relationship, but still not have conditions to love. Because
Ooh, I like that.
thank you so much. Because you can say, I'm going to love my husband regardless, but I may not stay with him. You know what I mean? The condition for us to be married, we have a little, a contract of sorts, and this is what I need for me to be happy, for me, whatever. And then you have this agreement and this conversation. And if someone is not following through with that and it's still not working, then maybe you go your separate ways, but you can still love them. And I know situations like that. I'm very close to situations like that. Same thing with your children. I mean, we know situations where parents have had to, unfortunately, part ways with their children, for whatever that looks like, or the other way around. But it doesn't mean that they ever stop loving them. I will never stop loving my children regardless of what they do. And I've said that to them. I have rules in my house and I'm pretty militant with my rules, but I say to them, I might, I'm okay if we're not friends. And I know that sounds harsh, but I'm here to guide you, to love you. You may not like that, but I'm always going to love you, So yeah, that's a tricky one, but I like that you brought that up.
And maybe unconditional, when I think of the condition, you were like, there's no, like, the uncondition of the love, but then there's the condition to the relationship.
Yes.
So maybe I'm getting confused with that. Like, that's good, because again, it's all about kind of defining things, right, for yourself,
yes.
and getting a little more clear. Yeah. So thank you. That was brilliant.
Thank you. Oh, look at that. I'm glad we had these conversations. I didn't even know that
And another thing that you mentioned that I want to highlight too, is you were saying how, connecting ourself, being able to take care and love ourselves with being able to take care and have our environment thrive. And I heard Prince Harry being on a podcast, and he was saying his big issues that he wants to address with the world and where he wants to put his time and energy in is mental health and climate change. He says, because they're completely interconnected. The stronger our sense of self is, and the more, we can function better in the world and within our own heart, the better we're going to treat our environment. And I just thought, like, yeah, he's right. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what you said when you were talking at the beginning. So
yes, I love that. I totally agree with that. And I also agree with, or I'm also thinking as you're saying that, and we've had this conversation before about climate change. I personally don't believe climate change is going to be as effective unless we actually connect to the planet, unless we're like, I love the planet. Like, I actually love this tree. I love the earth that I'm on. I'm not just recycling because someone told me to, or because that's the law that was passed because of some sort of a summit that happened. I actually care about the tree. I actually care about the land that I'm about to pass on to my children and my children's children and my children's children and the children's children after that. So I think, when we say love, when you and I talk about love, it's so much more than just a word. It's really connection and feeling. And I heard someone say this one time with regards to, and this is a different subject, but with regards to racism, he said, I think that unless people actually somehow are able to feel it versus intellectualize it, I don't think change is going to happen. So, but I love what you said with regards to mental health and to the environment. I absolutely agree that it definitely starts from our oxygen mask on ourselves first.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
And it's almost an inside job, and then it organically can become more of an outside job. I mean, it's way bigger than that, but it's one way to sort of feel like empower yourself that you actually can be helping.
Yes. And I want to ask you, Kate, how do you take care of your heart?
That's a great question. I like to hold it. I like to touch it. So if I'm lying on my back doing my breathing or meditation, I really like a hand there and on my belly, because I touch a lot of, like I said, hearts and bellies.
Yes.
So that's sort of just natural for me to have my hands on it. But I think the how I'm taking my care of my heart these days is I'm creating this intention. So I have this group coaching call every week now. We create an intention for the week, which I mean, the group coaching call is really for me, I think.
I hear you.
Right. So the intention that I've been creating recently is to actually be open to receiving through the heart, which has been really cool because sometimes throughout the week, I'll think, oh, this feels like I'm receiving love through my heart. And another thing I wanted to mention too was I learned from another coach was having the visual of breathing through your heart. She would say, breathe through your heart. And that's just a nice, relaxing way to connect. So I think when you say, how do you take care of your heart? I think it doesn't have to be this big experience. It can be an intention to have an open heart today, or it can be, a 5 breaths where you imagine you're breathing from your heart. So yeah. What about you, Ioana? And then we'll wrap up.
Yes. And I love what I'm just going to comment really quickly on what you said. The 3 things that really resonated with what you were saying was, I love that you said what I'm doing these days. I think that's really important. What you and I have talked about is that things can change and our toolbox can change, and whatever's going on in our lives can change. What worked for us 5 years ago may not work for us now, and then 5 years moving forward. The second thing that you were saying was that you've been healing or taking in that love. And I heard that from somebody else, an international person, a therapist and things like that. And he said, we heal through healing others, through helping others. And so when you're doing your group coaching call and then you're receiving all that love that you're giving, well, I always think of it as love as an infinity circle, right? So you're just like, you're giving it and then it comes back and you're giving it, and that's what it is. And then the final thing that you said is that it doesn't have to be complicated, which I think is really important, especially for people in our field where we have all of this information, all these books and things like that, where we're like, it's so complicated, but it doesn't have to be. So with regards to me, and thank you for asking, the biggest thing for me these days is just trying to be compassionate with myself and be like, it's okay to struggle, because I have been struggling with my struggle, like saying, well, I shouldn't be struggling. I shouldn't be struggling. I know too much to struggle. My heart should not hurt this much. This should not feel like this. And then I struggle with the struggle. And then there's like this endless, like looping loop, about my loops. So just sitting, and you've been so helpful with that, and just going, you know what, dude, like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. This, some situations suck, and that's okay to say that, like, this sucks. Yeah, that's all. Just be like, yeah, you know what, today sucks. Today was hard. That's all. There's no like spiritual higher consciousness thing. That's all it. And so just having that has released a lot, because it's bad enough struggling, but then struggling to remove the struggle, and then that not working, and now feeling blame, shame, and guilt, and then an unworthiness because you're a person in this wellness world and not being able to take care of that. Honestly, Kate, in the past little bit of time, that has been the biggest way to take care of my heart, and just being like, you know what, radical self-compassion. It's okay. It's okay. This does not feel good, and that's all right. So yeah.
Love you. Love you,
too.
love you. Open or close those hearts. Do whatever you need to do.
Yes.
Awesome. I can't wait to talk to you again next time, Ioana.
Too.
All right. Bye, girl. Have a good one.
Bye. You too. Thank you.